First off, all right, now once I guess everyone accepts being recorded, we'll go ahead and get rolling. I'll start my screen share though. If you guys could, let me know if you can see a slide talking about just the VIPRE product overview.
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right. Like I mentioned, at any point, if you need, just let me know and I'll be happy to pause or go into more detail. Or if there's something that you think I skipped that you want to have more info on, let me know. But that said, the first product of the 5 we're going to go over is going to be our endpoint security product. Now, this is going to be the idea of you're going to have a centralized console and you're going to protect all of the endpoints. I don't know the technical level of everyone on the call, but the concept would be like if you had, McAfee on your home computer, but just managed from an admin at an IT area. And they can go through, see all the reporting data, and our console is gorgeous. The web design guys did such a good job on it. I get made fun of here for how often I talk about it being so pretty. But that said, it is incredibly easy to use. And on top of that, it provides powerful protection against the things that you'd need. Now, when it comes to the different, labels of the endpoints out there, where there's the antivirus and the next generation type concept, we're at definitely the next generation level in the sense of we have that, to hit all the keywords, next generation advanced procedural heuristics engine that incorporates a vast store of machine learning. And outside of being a mouthful, what it really means is just we don't require prior knowledge of threats in order to be able to stop them. And that's what gives us our phenomenal protection rates. And on top of that, when we have the little AV comparatives tests every month or so, where they rate all the other AVs publicly, we are not only either first for detections or tied for first or fighting for first place. We're always, for a very long time frame, the lowest when it comes to false positives out there. And false positives can be almost as bad as false negatives. And that is one of the chief complaints of AVs out there. The idea is, they have bad detection rates, so they overtune their software to catch more stuff than it should, just to make sure their detection rates don't go down on the public tests, which ends up making everything a pain for IT guys out there. So knowing that we are the best out there when it comes to that is hugely helpful. On top of just that file protection and so on, we also have DNS and intrusion detection on those machines. And the long and short of this here is, while we do have the DNS protection, it's all built onto the agent itself. It's not some hosted DNS solution they have to change up their whole environment for, point everyone to, set up their firewall. No, it's just if the agent is installed, it's going to be performing the DNS protection. And if they happen to have any of those other layers, like they have a hosted DNS solution like Cisco Umbrella, or if they happen to do this through their firewall, we'll be able to work directly in line, step on no toes, and just be another layer of protection that's always in play. So, like if someone goes out of the network and the firewall is no longer helping, then it's nice that you still have this layer that's doing that DNS protection. But either way, all that said, we also have optional web access control, which allows us to control web access. And as you see, we have a bunch of different categories. We have a couple of presets of low, medium, and high, or they can just make their own list. And they can apply those controls either all the time, only certain days on certain hours, or only certain days on certain hours, except for certain hours. But yeah, the nice thing is the optional component is purely the preferential blocking, because that's going to be what people may or may not want, or may have something else that does this or so forth. The protection is always provided. So if someone goes to a illegal software site and there's something malicious on it, they're still safe, even if they didn't get web access control. But this would allow that blocking of sites based on preference, like it's inappropriate or it's a time waster, so on and so forth. But really, that's up the endpoint security. Super easy to set up. And one other thing that's not on this slide that I do really like to mention is our very directly named incompatible software removal tool, which does exactly that. And when we say incompatible software, we just mean other security products. So deploying VIPRE is also the removal of whatever someone already has, so they don't have to prep the environment to make the change. And you'd be surprised how many people don't change their AV just because they know what a nightmare it's going to be to try to remove it to put something else on it. Knowing that something else will do that, they'll be like, look, I'll pay you just to do that. So I've had someone actually come up at a trade show and talk to me about something like that. But either way, point is, that's our endpoint security. Any questions there?
Hi, Ryan. Yes, I do have one question. Well, two questions actually.
Please,
Thank
more
you.
the better.
So should I understand that the web access control, that feature comes along with endpoint security, regardless if endpoint security is on-prem or cloud-based? I mean, that comes either way. I mean, that's still feasible either way, right?
Well, the on-prem, this is everything I've talked about is going to be applicable to the cloud side. Everything protection-wise is true with the on-prem edition, but just to not muck things up and confuse things, let's just consider the server edition a separate product. First off, it does not have the web access control. It has the DNS protection, just not the web access control option, which again, just to stress, is an option on the cloud side. However, that said, the cloud is pretty much always going to be what people are going to want to go for under almost all circumstances, unless A, they are just one of those people that don't want to go cloud, and or excuse me, or they're someone that has some requirement that they can't go to the cloud. Especially, and I'll just throw this out there because this is something that's coming out, and we can definitely schedule another training like this for when it does, to let you guys get a little preview here. We have, with our new edition that's coming out, I believe around the end of this month or so, we're going to bridge the main gap between the server and cloud edition. And the few people that want to stay on the server edition, if you have any customers that are currently using it, most likely it's because it provides third-party patch management. It looks for out-of-date third-party products and updates them and reports on it. However, that's going to be released for the cloud here soon, but it's going to be dramatically enhanced. And if you have been working with VIPRE for any period of time, you'll know patch management's been coming for a while. And it's a personal, like, big deal for me. Like, I'm going out to celebrate when it does release here. But that said, the patch management with on-prem does its job. And the whole idea and people like about it is it's fire and forget, you check boxes and it just patches stuff. And the cloud can do that. But the cloud also is vulnerability assessment. And what I mean by that is, on top of going through and saying, hey, these are the programs you have on this on the computers with a much more expansive list, it'll also let you know, because they're out of date, these are the CSC, CRs, whatever those codes are, the actual vulnerabilities that are provided by whatever version is out of date. And with the new version that is available, does it fix those? And if so, which ones and how many? So it really lets you see not only what programs are out of date and keep things patched, but like, let's say some group needs to leave Java at an old version for a while. They really get to see the vulnerabilities that are provided by having that old version, which can really spur people to try to, upgrade all their other stuff to get those vulnerable programs out of there. Okay, but that makes sense. Sorry, that was a really long answer for that.
No worries. Yes. So for now, web access control just for cloud, and everything we're seeing here right now, it's cloud, right?
Yes. And like I said, I wouldn't even have on-prem as something that you'd mention to people, because there's just almost no reason to these days anymore, unless they're one of those two things where either they just don't want cloud stuff or they can't have cloud stuff. In that case, we can go and touch on the endpoint security. And just like anything else here, if you have any customer of and I don't like setting a hard limit, like a 50 seats or higher, we can set up one of these with me to go and do exactly what we're doing right now, but just specifically on one customer, and just talk to Manny. We can get that scheduled, and we can make sure that you guys don't have to memorize everything I'm talking about, but I do want to make sure that you get the info you need. Again, sorry, long answer.
Quick question.
Awesome. Sorry, yeah, go ahead. No further questions on me. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah. So quick question there, Ryan. So say it's a small car dealership and he's got 10 machines. So we would buy the 10 licenses, and then he'd have a cloud login, correct?
Absolutely. In fact, I can show you a little more with this too. First off, this is what the console looks like. But let's say this car dealership needs a new AV, and this process is going to assume they're starting from a trial. But let's say that they want to go and try VIPRE out and utilize our trial process, which they could do this either through us. I do believe, and Mandy, correct me if I'm wrong here, we provide you guys a link so you can have a trial that automatically links to you guys if they create it through that special link.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Yes. So we can make sure you get access to that. But the whole idea is the customer sets this up. We'll get notified and they'll automatically receive an email, and you'll also get notified that they'll continue their setup. At
Okay.
which point, all they have to do is pick the name for their site, which would just be the site or the location that they access the console, and a
Right.
password, and accept the EULA. And that's it. They're done. And that said, this is the VIPRE Endpoint Security Cloud Console, which
Okay.
again, super gorgeous. And the nice thing about this is I don't know how in-depth you want me to go on deployment, but it's incredibly easy. Typically what's done is just through like GPO or deployment software or something like this. You just run a file, it runs in the background, and it removes whatever security software is on there and installs VIPRE. And just one neat little thing about ours is we have the concept of what I like to call a generic installer. And what I mean by that is it's not a separate thing you have to run on laptops, servers, or workstations. So first off, licensing is just how many people are you protecting? We don't care what's what, which makes things so much simpler. But on top of that, instead of going and like, let's say they're going to do a GPO deployment or they're going to use their deployment software or something like that. And you guys have probably run into this. People's Active Directory is very rarely very well organized. There's like 5 different people over the course of 15 years that have had different organizational styles. Like, okay, let's say you're making one that's going to install to all servers. All right, you have to make this super specific list of these OUs. And then also, oh, wait, no, there's some that weren't sorted right. Oh, there's these old ones over. It's a nightmare. With us, it's just legitimately, here's a file, run it on every computer. We'll just determine, is it a laptop, workstation, or server, and apply the correct rules. That's it.
How does are you pushing that down to each machine, or how does it from the interface?
Now,
Are you-
what we're doing is just providing the actual installer. So they just click this. From there, they typically either through GPO or through like some sort of deployment tool, like ConnectWise, Automate, something like that.
Okay,
Would allow them to go and just run this file. And now they can also just run this file on all the computers. Or
so manually at each machine, they need to run this file.
they don't need to manually. It just needs to run there. And that's what I'm mentioning through GPO, which is just built into Windows. And typically
Yeah.
all machines on the same network, not external machines, but any machines on the network, they can just make a rule. And that's what makes this a lot more useful to a lot of customers. A lot of customers don't use GPO because of what I mentioned about Active Directory being so unorganized. So letting them know is just, look, you can just make a rule that says every computer that's online run this file.
Do they have
That
to
makes it
reboot?
so much simpler. That depends on the previous AV. So we're going to remove whatever's on the computer, and
Yeah.
if that needs a reboot to be fully removed, then we will. Otherwise, we typically don't with a fresh install. If we don't have to remove something, we typically don't need a reboot at all.
Okay, and then it shows up in the interface, the cloud interface.
Exactly. And we determine just if it's a laptop, workstation, or server simply by servers, what OS it's running, and workstations, laptops, just non-server OS if it has battery options on, or if it doesn't.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Like I said, makes it incredibly easy. Oh, and for any remote people, they can also just go type in their email addresses, and they'll get sent a list of instructions, which is basically run a file, hit next, agree next, and they're done. And it'll also give them a link to the installer itself. And you can see if they've actually downloaded it and run it. They will need administrative rights, but that said, you wouldn't want an AV that doesn't require admin rights to run or install.
How often is it pinging remote sites to keep an eye on them? Is it real time?
We're going to have a basic heartbeat of 5 minutes, but anything that happens is sent just when it happens. Like if there's like an active protection block or something, we're just going to let the console know. But when it comes to just nothing's happening and we're just keeping an eye on the agent, it's every 5 minutes.
Okay, good.
All
And
right.
they
So
can do at each one, they can go down to the bottom there and do a right mouse update to keep current everything as far as updates.
oh, they don't need to. When it comes to first off definitions just take care of themselves in the background, and they're tiny. We do incremental updates, effectively meaning like to a download of definition version 11. You just get the differences between the version 10 you have and 11. You don't download all of 11 and just overwrite 10. So it makes it really small. But that said, it is an interesting question when you bring up the actual software version, because we have a couple of different routes people can take. With the software updates, they could either A, utilize this kind of a gateway process where if there's a new version, we'll let them know in an email saying, hey, there's a new version out there. We'll mention it in the actual message of the day, and they'll have this inside the deploy screen. Now, their current version will stay what they have, so no one that's set to auto update will do so. However, you'll get to go and just download the installer of the new version, maybe toss it on some new machine in a test environment, see how it runs, or pick some machines you already have deployed, like, all right, Bob, you're going to test it for me, make sure everything's all happy and in place. And then once you hit approve, your current console version upgrades to the new one. Everyone's set to auto update, which is everyone but server policies, auto updates to the new version, and everything's all happy.
I see. Good.
However, that said, some people don't want to do that, and they just say, look, just auto approve. I don't want to be notified. I don't want to go through this process. Just keep things up to date for me. No problem. And in that case, everything except server policies will just auto update everything, and only servers will need manual deployment, which you'll have a list here of in the dashboard, which ones are actually out of date. And you'll be able to go by the version to just say, all right, I'm going to have all these, oh, excuse me, all these guys. I want them to update at this time. All right, but all that makes sense.
Perfect. Yeah, nice.
All right, yeah, I love the Endpoint Cloud. It is the easiest console in the world to use. So the nice thing is you don't ever run into people having problems because of misconfiguration, which is an amazing amount of the time. And what a lot of the other AV groups fall back, oh, well, you did have this feature configured exactly the right way. That's why you weren't protected. No, we don't want that to happen.
Is there training available on the interface and setting it up and all that, like a YouTube video or some way to train the end user, the IT guy?
We have a documentation on our site, which has videos and that whole process here. And on top of that, our support is top notch. And I'll save my big support spiel for after I touch on all the products, but our support guys are amazing. And I'm not just saying that because I used to be one of them.
Okay.
All right. Now, any other questions on endpoint security before I move on to our email product? Okay. Now, this is going to be what protects the individual machines. However, our email security product is going to guard from a different angle, and this is to guard mail flow. So instead of having an agent you have on all these machines all over the place that you're making sure are safe because there's stuff running on them and we need to make sure it's not bad, what this is doing is making sure that there's less stuff that could be bad, A, for those machines that are protected by that endpoint security, and B, for machines that are accessing their webmail from completely unprotected systems, maybe from home, maybe their phones, who knows. But the idea is we want to guard at this central location. So what we do is instead of, again, having something to deploy all over the place, we're a gateway. We sit right between the internet and their mail server. We they perform what we call an MX record change, which is just pointing all their mail to us. We do all our cool filtering, et cetera, and then we send the filtered traffic onto the mail server, and everything just moves on like normal. And the nice thing about that is we are completely agnostic as to what they use for their mail server. It could be Exchange on-prem, Office 365, G Suite, some cheapo solution out there. They could go program their own mail server and will work just fine. We'll just send the things on, and as long as they accept external mail traffic like a mail server should, everything will work just fine. So
is that an appliance?
Nope. Everything's completely cloud-based. All they have to do is in the process of the setup, they'll be letting us know where to send the mail. So after the console gets configured, they just pick which options they want and turn the knob on the faucet with the MX record to have all their mail flow through us, and then we just redirect it onto their mail server.
Oh, so we're pointing like if it's coming from Comcast or Spectrum or whatever, we're pointing that to you, and then that goes on to the server.
Exactly. So every domain just has an MX record. So whenever some sort of mail gets sent, it just checks, oh, hey, where do I send it? They just, instead of using where they currently have like their Office 365 or their home instance of or Exchange, they point that to us, and then they point us to whatever they currently have their MX record set to. And we're just a step in between.
And then you guys monitor, is that a separate screen than the other one?
From the endpoint security?
Yeah.
Yes, because this is going to be guarding from the point of view of mail flow, not the endpoints, which it's,
Yeah.
you don't want to cram those two together in the same console.
Okay.
But with all that, we provide all the things that they would want when it comes to the actual protection, super easy interface, et cetera, anti-spam, virus, spoofing, phishing. But on top of that, we also provide all the advanced levels of email protection that you'd want. Like first off, our sandboxing. So when files come and are scanned, instead of just checking what they are as they go by to see if they're known bad or have known bad properties, I always like to picture like a post office being able to x-ray something to see, oh, there's a laptop in here, that should be fine. As opposed to what our sandboxing allows, which is to, in the, what was the analogy here? It would be taking the laptop out, turning it on, making sure the charger actually charges and doesn't do something else. Oh, is it oh, it turns, okay, yeah, it's actually a laptop. Oh, no, it's not a laptop. It's just shaped like a laptop. Point is, this is all able to be done by allowing us, when files come in that could be malicious, to run inside our sandbox, which is Threat Analyzer. It's one of the few things that's been with the company longer than I have. It's been around for like 18 years. It was the first commercially available sandbox, so it's powerful, proven, et cetera, et cetera. But we just take these files, run them in a Windows environment that doesn't have any security at all, and let them go to their heart's content. And then once everything's done, we'll decide if the full culmination of everything it did is going to be malicious or not. And we can do this in less than 2 minutes with no need for a change for the end user and how this works. Like they're not gonna, oh, hey, when you get attachments now, you're gonna get an email that's separate from the attachment that's gonna warn you and say it's gonna come in about, no, they just get the email about, a minute or two later, and they don't even know that it's been scanned or anything unless you want them to. But either way, it makes everything super simple because pretty much all these features I'll be talking about, not just this one, are check a box to turn them on, just like our phishing defense, which this is utilizing the concept of link rewriting. So when a message comes in that points somewhere, these bad guys have a process of, and I can't believe in the sphere we're in, there's no, what was it, acronym or something for this, but the concept of when bad guys weaponize links after they've been received. So they'll send an email to a whole bunch of different people, and initially they'll have a redirect that they control, something similar to the concept of like tiny URL, just a link that goes somewhere else. And initially it goes to google.com or somewhere completely benign. But then after they send the message and, 15 minutes go by, all the email securities, things out there, scan them and they see, oh, wait, no, that goes to Google. That's fine. With a copy and paste in their bad guy software, they change where that redirect or link goes to. And now it's sitting in everyone's mailbox. And you just have to hope there's some other layer of security that's going to stop it. And again, this is infuriatingly easy for these bad guys to do. So what we do to defend against this is we just change all links that come in to point to us so that when they're clicked on, we perform what I like to call click time protection, so that we check to see where it's going right now. Is that bad? And if it's not, end users don't even know. They click the link, it just goes to where they're supposed to go. However, if it is bad, they get to pick exactly, what they get to see, if they can go by, et cetera, et cetera. But all that, again, is just going to be check a box and it's done. And it dramatically improves protection, especially because, again, people aren't always accessing from something they do have endpoint security on. Like, okay, let's say that redirect or link did get changed and you didn't have the enhanced phishing protection. Yeah, the endpoint security should catch it. However, you want to give threats the least number of ups that, to actually try to break through defenses as possible. But that aside, what if they're not checking on something like that? What if they're checking at home on just their, home computer? When it comes to corporate email, it is dramatically worse when it comes to the level of threats that come in. And as the go-to guy for my friends and family, I found that people rarely have AV installed at home. And if they do, it's whatever came pre-installed on their computer 3 years ago that expired 2 years ago. But that said, I've also never seen one of them hit no when their browser asks them, would you like to save this password? And that stuff's the first thing gone when you have a threat hit a machine. And if you have a threat that comes in like this with a bad link, some guy checks at home with his email, gets his computer infected, boom, that bad guy now can log in as that user because he just gets that guy's password from the browser. So this makes sure if they happen to be checking at home, the security is just part of the link. We just make sure wherever they are, if they click it, where it goes is still okay. So very powerful protection. And again, all of this stuff is enable sandboxing, enable phishing defense, with all the customization options available if they want to change how it works, but really the functionality is the checkbox. But any questions so far? I know I've gone over a lot real quick. Okay, cool. So from there, the last thing to mention about email security is, that and at the end, our encryption. So what this allows us to do is the idea of, I send you an email, you don't get the message from me, you get something saying, hey, please click here to view an email from Ryan. And then you go to a secure portal and we talk back and forth where you have more control over the actual messages. Now, this is pretty standard across how things all work. So when you mention email-based encryption, they'll know exactly what you're talking about. And it's just an add-on component, which again, you check a couple of boxes, hit apply, and you've deployed encryption. And I really like this because it's an awesome back pocket feature. Because if someone doesn't need encryption, but they've heard it might come later, letting them know that they can look like a hero just by, oh, hey, let's buy encryption, check 4 boxes, and it's fully deployed. They really like having that in their back pocket. But one last, oh, sorry, please.
So does VIPRE have a button in Outlook where if I just want to encrypt certain emails, I can just push the button and then encrypt that one?
It's interesting you mentioned that because I'll go over something we can do similar to it. But when it comes to our email security, just this encryption by itself, the way it's going to be triggered, at least just by default, is going to be, the concept of bracket, encrypt, bracket, or whatever other trigger they would like to use, or any set of other circumstances. Like if we have a couple of pre-built lists like human diseases and medicines, so we can say, oh, hey, if any of these things are seen in attachments or body, the attachments or the body of a message, encrypt the message because it might be, personal to a user. So you don't have to rely on end users actually encrypting when they need to, but use that bracket, encrypt, bracket, which is pretty much standard across the other groups. But when I get to save send, I'll let you know something cool we can do with that. All right, so. All right, one last thing to mention, just not on this page, is the fact that we also have the extra option of archiving for our email security. And this is the idea of we, archive messages anywhere from 1 year to 10 years to an unlimited amount of time. The storage is unlimited and has nothing to do with the charge. And on top of that, we have the archive fully indexed. So if they want to search for every Word file they've received in the last 5 years that references the word the 7 times, sure. Then they can download them, forward them on, whatever they need to do with archive messages. And we can also import the archive if they already have one, because if someone wants archiving, we can do that either through something online like an Amazon S3 bucket, or we can do something like if they're more paranoid, we can mail them physically a hard drive and they can copy and paste the PST and EML files and then just mail it back to us. And we'll just copy and paste them in there for them. Yeah. That's email security. So next is going to be our security awareness training, which a lot more straightforward is going to be security awareness training, which is going to allow us to do 3 things. We're going to want to train people to make sure that they know what they need to know in the environments that they're in, just the vulnerabilities of having an email account, all the things that just you can't assume people know. We need to make sure we test them so that they are learning the things they need to know to avoid all the things that they're going to encounter. And we have a bunch of different ways of doing this. As you see, email, phishing, the things you'd expect, but also the ridiculously named vishing and smishing simulations with voicemail and text, trying to get people to call numbers back or text something. And also USB baiting, copy a few files to a flash drive, throw it somewhere. Optional, label it something fun like Bitcoin wallet, and then just see if anyone plugs it in. And finally, the last role of security awareness training is just to report on all that. Bob was assigned this course on this date, finished it on this date, got this score. And also, these are the people that clicked on these phishing messages, all the things that people would need to know. Now, again, this is pretty standard across what security awareness training does, and that's the whole idea as pretty much a whole. But one thing we do that makes this whole process way easier is our setup is incredibly simple. Very similar to, like I mentioned, with email security, check boxes, change an MX record, endpoint security, here's a file, send it to all your machines. And for SAT, in fact, I can show you what the process would look like. Go to another presentation here real fast. Let's say a customer goes through and they decide, I want to do VIPRE security awareness training. We say, okay. And from there, after all the whole process completes, they'll receive an email, and this will have a link that they'll click on to start their setup, where they'll pick a password to utilize for their first admin account. At which point that starts a wizard to grab that basic company info, that all cloud sites need, just basic stuff. From there, they download a CSV file that they just fill with, all they need is first name, last name, and email of the people they want to train, and they upload it back. And that's it. They're done. If they want, you see the registration, enrollment, and user notification emails. They can customize those if they'd like maybe toss their own logo in there or something, but they don't have to. And that's it. That security awareness training. What we have is our pre-configured learning path that has all the courses vetted by our security experts to be in the right cadence and order, so that for the first year, everything's pre-programmed. You just say who to test. We'll send the courses. We'll send the actual, phishing simulations, report back on it, et cetera, et cetera. All they need to do at this point is wait for the reporting information to roll in. And if they have any new users, they can add them to make sure they go through the training as well. And the end users also have the exact same type of process where they'll get a message to set up their end user account, Force IQ, the first training they get, which is their assessment to just see their baseline knowledge. So they'll create their password so they can view their courses and start the assessment. At which point, since their account's created now, they can pretty much start their courses through the link saying you've been assigned. And that's going to be the entire setup from beginning to end for the admin and the end user. Any questions so far? All right. Now, while VIPRE Endpoint Security and VIPRE Email Security have the product and a couple of add-ons you can utilize, our security awareness training is a little different. The way it's going to work is it has a couple of different packages that different customers can purchase. And we have 3 different levels. The first is what I like to call the doubter level, the essentials. And this is the guy who does not want to get security awareness training, but he has to, either from some requirement through something, especially because cybersecurity insurance is starting to actually require you do this, but also, maybe because his boss told him to or something like that. But the point is, when it comes to, first off, the requirement, it's be doing security awareness training, be sending courses, and be sending phishing sims. And boom, this checks those boxes. You saw the super easy setup. They go through, say who they want to test. They're done. They don't have to worry about it ever again. And by 30-day cadence, I mean every month people will receive something, either a phishing sim or some sort of course. And for the first year, you'll see we have 4 full courses, 2 micro modules, and 6 email phishing sims. And at the end of that year, they'll be auto-assigned to a new set for whatever's appropriate next year. Like if something is somehow worse than ransomware or something like that, we'll make sure that's included, et cetera. But the main thing most people are going to aim for is going to be our advanced level. And what this allows is everything to be kicked up to a 15-day cadence, meaning every month people will receive both some sort of training and a phishing sim. And because of the increased frequency, you can see we have more full courses, more micro modules. And while there are 12 pre-configured phishing sims here, this is where the unlimited level gets unlocked. So outside of those pre-configured ones that are part of that learning path, Advanced can send however many additional ones. If they want to send 500 a month for the first week, sure, no problem. And it's also where they unlock the phishing and smishing. I hate those names. But anyway, the count there where it says 1 per user count, the concept would be if they go first, and I apologize about the cat in the background, but if they have like a site for 50 seats, that would be for the first year, they can phish and vish 50 times each. With the goal being, you don't want to just do this to everyone once, because first off, most people get really annoyed if you do this to their personal devices. But you target the high priority people in the company or people using company cell phones or something like that, and you do them multiple times per year. And also, this is where we unlock the USB baiting option. But the final level, and this is going to be typically for larger customers, is going to be our, obviously, our enterprise level. And first, the big difference here is number 1, this requires a 100 seat minimum. that I'm still currently trying to knock down to a 50. But that said, this is going to have the same pre-configured content as advanced. So the same cadence, same courses, and so on. However, on top of tripling the phishing and smishing sim options they get, this is where they get access to the full course catalog. So if they want to do any sort of training outside of the normal training we're going to offer with the pre-configured path, they can just go, PCI compliance training, diversity training, all those types of things. You can just add that to their console, and they'll be able to go and add that to default training paths, or have branches so only some people get all the courses, or everyone gets all the courses. Some people get specific courses, etc. Oh, and also it's where we unlock API integration. The main idea here being some groups, again, for cybersecurity stuff, they require logging of all this separately. So to save that poor user having to go and copy and paste 10,000 times every month that Bob was assigned this course on this date, finished it on this date, and got this score, we can just set up API to automatically populate everything. There's other things it can do, but that's the main use. But either way, that's VIPRE Security Awareness Training. Everything make sense?
Very nice. Yep.
All right. So next, this will be nice and quick. This is going to be our VIPRE Encrypt.team. And this is a pretty much a small business VPN offering, which, like a basic VPN, it does what you'd expect. It's going to go through, make sure wherever you install it, and we have a wide range of OSs, and I'll mention what they are here in a second. Make sure that all their browsing is kept safe. So anything they go to on the internet, or any internal things they have inside their network, that they're going to be safe from prying eyes, and that it's very easy to manage all this. Now, the first couple of things to mention is, again, this is kind of a smaller business offering. And the reason I say that is it's a fit for people who don't have access to bigger teams that are managing this, on a bigger level. Because when that's happening, a lot of that is going to be done through their firewall in most circumstances, or some other tool. This is going to be for groups that need something, again, like kind of the VIPRE concept here, something easy to use, something they can go and just set up and keep everyone connected and protected without having to have this, hardware firewall that they need to put in place and all these extra options they need to add on to it. No, just, hey, sign up, tell us who you want to protect, get them to install the agent, they'll get a login, they're done. So that's the whole idea here. However, one thing I'll mention is, again, this is a hosted VPN, so all they have to do is install an agent. Super easy to install. We have a large, I really need to change the animation so it shows the supported OSs here first, but I'll get to that in a second. But one of my favorite aspects is anyone else that does anything similar to this, which is why this is kind of a nice niche product here, whichever one it may be. Either way, is this easy team management, which first off, like I said, simple setup, just like everything at VIPRE. However, the two big issues with other things that are at this level are bandwidth or device limitations per user. Like, oh, hey, you can only have 2 people or 2 places that log in with this login. So if some guy has his work computer and his phone connecting, and then, he wants to connect from his home computer, he has to go and deregister a device and then go and then register a new device. Now, we don't care. We don't want you to have any sort of problems like this. Just sign up and everyone can log in and whatever device they need. Same idea with no bandwidth limitations. And this is from 2 points of view. There's no hard limit. So there's no idea of, you hit a certain amount of bandwidth, because all traffic will be going through us. But there's no point where we're going to cut off your actual VPN usage because you hit too much, or we're going to overcharge you because you used more than this amount this month. Or the thing I hate, the soft limit, where, we don't say anything, but after you go to a certain level, you get the metered connection, where now you get everything really slow until the end of the month, where everything's, no, we know full bandwidth and full user device usage across everything. And those 2 things just dramatically simplify trying to get VPN managed. And again, for this sphere, that's going to be something fairly unique to us. Most of the other ones are going to have some weird issue with one of those 2 that makes managing them a nightmare. But the final thing that makes this really nice is, while this is great to keep all your stuff safe, like, okay, this is all your browsing safe, and all their logins aren't going to be intercepted in the middle because they're connected to some, infected router, yada, yada, yada. But we also have the ability for private endpoints. And that's going to be this concept right here over to the right, where these are internal work resources. Now, they will give them an image that they just set up within their environment. They just associate a code with their console, and they just assign who gets access to that private endpoint. And the long and short of this is how you give access to things like, oh, I want people to be able to access these remote desktop environments, but I don't want to just open my network so anyone outside the network can access RDP, that they just need the right password. No, this is they need access from inside the network, and the only way they can do that outside is if they're connected to the VPN, and the end user, no impact in how it works for them. They just log in, and whatever they're configured to be able to access, they can access. So super easy to get everything managed here. But like I said, it's going to be typically aimed towards the smaller groups out there, because of the fact that, again, the bigger groups are typically going to have this built into a firewall. It's going to have all sorts of other things. They're probably going to have all sorts of crazy requirements for it. This is mainly people want to go through and keep safer that are smaller business groups, especially those people with RDP, or like people that are now working from home and they have all sorts of stuff that they like. For example, like if you have a wiki for all your internal stuff, you might not want it to be, oh, hey, anyone from the outside, if you just have the right password, you can access all this information on our wiki. But be really safe about those passwords? No, you want it to be no one outside can access, and only if they're connected to our VPN can they see these things in the network. And that is very difficult to implement if you don't have something already in place, or if something's already in place, you don't need this. So that's really what I wanted to cover with this. That all makes sense? Oh, also OS is finally.
Thank you, Ryan. So, well, really quick, just if I understood, just recapping really quick, this Encrypt team, VPN and private endpoint, in summary, this is just for smaller businesses or smaller communities, and this has nothing to do with mail flow in any way. It's just exclusively for data exchange through browsing the web. And so everything is secured within a closed environment of secure exchange of information through browsing. Am I following you?
Exactly. All it's going to allow is just to make sure, just like, in fact, unfortunately, it's not my main monitor, so I can't show it here, but that whole concept of they'll just log in once. After that, it'll be set to auto login if they'd like. And they just have a VPN that allows the end user no need to do anything special, but all their browsing is safe. And if the admin wants, they can also distribute access to internal resources to anyone that is connected to it through Windows, Mac, Android, iOS, or Amazon Fire devices.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So sorry. The Encrypt team is, like I said, it's kind of it's not something that's for huge offerings, but it's really, really nice. And it can also be a great in with a group, because it's a very unique problem to have, that there's not a lot of things that are kind of at that level. It's pretty much consumer level, where it's like super basic and you have all these weird limitations and you can't manage everything globally, or super complicated, built into a firewall with a billion different options. This is that in between for those people that just want people to have stuff safe and to give them logins to do it and not have to have an IT team manage everything.
So if my business starts growing over the years and my company is becoming larger, and my the number of employees and colleagues increases, this product, well, I might need to move from this product, and the next one up would be like an endpoint, right? I mean, this VPN is just one feature of the whole endpoint product that we were talking about earlier, but that is for like a larger community or larger enterprise. Am I following you?
And the nice thing about this, let's say a company does grow, what this would allow is, since this is already set up, and as long as they don't have any very specific requirements, which that said, if they take time to grow, we're adding all sorts of cool things to this as time goes on. But either way, this would pretty much mean if they do implement this giant hardware firewall, they don't have to pay for the VPN aspect. They don't have to go and set up the VPN aspect. It completely removes that from their plate, unless they have some crazy new thing that they have requirement-wise that's like a really specific thing we can't do. So if they happen to grow too larger, this is great because they don't have to go through that extra effort. I just mentioned the larger groups because if they are that big, they probably do have something like that, because there aren't any options like this.
Gotcha.
Okay. And it's usually, like I said, a big lift to get it set up through a hardware setup. All right. So
Okay.
oh, sorry. Any other questions on VPN? All right. No. Or now we get to my favorite one, and that's going to be our little SafeSend product, which compared to all these other things is, it seems, again, a lot smaller scale, but it is so incredibly useful. And the nice thing about it is all you have to do is see it and you immediately know everything you need to know. And the whole idea is this is to guard from the opposite angle as email security. So email security is making sure all the stuff that comes in is safe. In fact, all the DLP and stuff you're still going to do on your mail server, make sure if anything goes out with credit card numbers or blah, 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 that you do these things. And that's important. However, what SafeSend for Outlook allows us to do is to make sure that when people are sending messages, just that they're going to the right people that they expect it to, and that the actual recipients, or excuse me, the actual contents of the message and any attachments that they have is what they expect. And really, I could go through the slide here, but it's easiest just to see it in action. And I have so many people that when I go through and do demos, you can just hear by their voice within the first minute, as soon as I hit send right here, they're probably, oh, yep, that's exactly what I want. So like right here, boom, bunch of different people on the message, a couple of different files. It's an example email. SafeSend is going to act just as a pop-up as soon as you hit send. And it's going to say, hey, there's external people on this message. Here are all the different external domains. Let me color code them for you so you can just blur your eyes to see the different domains you're sending to. It's the actual email addresses that you're messaging, not their friendly name in Outlook, so you don't have two Ryan Cooks, which there's a lot of Ryan Cooks for some reason. But either way, that said, not only do you have to go and approve all of the people on the message, if there's any attachments, you also have to approve them. The select all is optional and contextual to say, only pop up if there's certain like 25 plus people, or just don't let them use select all. But either way, not only do you have to approve the files and the recipients, but if there's anything sensitive, which we can search for anything DLP wise for basically any regular expression or string of characters, and we have a giant bank of them people can copy and paste in, and we can just search for anything they'd like to say, oh, hey, warning, there's sensitive content in here as well. So yes, this file's okay. But yes, this sensitive content that's within this file is also okay. And they'll also be able to have a customized message here, typically something along the lines of, if you have any questions on if you are allowed to send this message, click here for our full policy, and like a link for an internal wiki article or something like that. And they'll also have their own logo. I'll mention encryption in a second. But that's SafeSend. I'll mention like deployment, like situations where it pops up and everything beyond, but really that's the whole idea. And there's also some context stuff I'll throw out of when we do pop up, so it's not just every email. But does this make sense to everyone? And can you see how people would just see this and immediately like, oh my God, this is exactly what I want. Yeah. So this isn't some weird banner at the top that everyone ignores. And like I mentioned with the contextual option, while you absolutely can have this pop up every time a message is sent externally, I actually have a recommendation for what to utilize when it comes to this. And it makes it so it doesn't just, SafeSend's not part of muscle memory when you're sending an email, because that's what a lot of these other routes end up doing. It's just something people always see, so they end up ignoring. So I need to come up with a catchier name for this, but our multiple external domain detection option. And what this allows us to do is pop up in very few circumstances. So first on, so these are just your internal domains and any internal aliases, and we never pop up for those because that's fine. Okay, you misaddress something to someone internally, we don't care. However, we also, with this option of the multiple external domain detection, we can allow things like this. Oh, there's one recipient on this email, there's only one external domain, there's no attachment, and DLP wasn't triggered on anything in the body, so there's no pop-up. You can also have internal people in there. You can have 50 people that are internal on there, and as long as there's just that one guy from that one external domain, and there's no attachment, and DLP doesn't trigger inside the message, there's no pop-up. You can have as many people from that domain as you want, and as many safe domain people. There could be 100 people on this email. And we do have a warning if you'd like for, there's a lot of people on this email, heads up. But that said, when it comes to our pop-up for domain confirmation, No problem, because there's only one external recipient domain. Again, as long as there's no attachment or DLP trigger. However, and this is going to be what catches what I like to call the edge circumstances. The things you can't make a hard rule for, because you can always say, be careful about sending, credit card numbers and so on and so forth. But if someone can send credit card numbers, you can't go and say which credit card number is allowed to go where. And this is what catches little things that might be beyond that, or even just things that are not something you can make a DLP rule for. And that's this right here. There's one extra domain. That's when we pop up. So for all these other circumstances and most of the emails people send throughout their day and in email chains that they've already confirmed VIPRE Safe Send, they don't have to worry about anything going on. However, as soon as they have one of the situations that would warrant it, oh, hey, there's an attachment. We want to make sure you double check on the attachment. Oh, there's something that triggered DLP wise. And this doesn't have to just be credit card numbers and so on. This can be anything they want to look for. But if those happen, just make sure that they confirm, what they need to confirm. You can even say attachments are okay as long as DLP doesn't trigger in them. And they can make this very custom. So it's not, again, just something annoying every time people send an email. It's something that is a helpful reminder. They'll send a message and go, ooh, and it's a moment that just needs a little extra human reasoning applied to say, is this actually okay? And I know it's a long explanation for something so simple, but I love this product. And we have two different ways we can use this. But before I go into, what's supported and things like that, any questions on the functionality? Oh, I forgot to go into encryption. I'll touch on encryption after I ask about functionality. Okay, good. Encryption. You were asking before about a button in Outlook for Encrypt. This isn't necessarily a button in Outlook, but this is what we would use as an alternative. So this Encrypt option right here, this is the ability to integrate with any other encryption option. Like, let's just, for argument's sake, let's say they have VIPRE email security and they're using our encryption. We can set it so, like I told you before, if you put bracket encrypt bracket, it encrypts the message. But it's first off amazing the variations of the word encrypt I've seen. But there's also people that put it in parentheses or put it in squiggly brackets or carets, which I really should know the real names of those by now. But either way, point is that what we do here is just, instead of that, we can say, again, contextually, only if there's an attachment, only if DLP triggers, all the time, whatever they'd want. They can say, hey, in plain English, do you want to encrypt this message? And they cannot send the email until they answer yes or no. And if they answer yes, we just automatically add that bracket encrypt bracket and it gets encrypted down the line. But that way, first off, we're not doing the encryption at the add-in level, which, oh my God, that is such a recipe for disaster if you're using ever more than one plugin. But either way, that said, with us, it's just, hey, yes or no, do you want to? And you could even go an easier route to say, if DLP triggers, ask them if they want to encrypt the message and pre-populate yes, just to suggest it. But that's encryption for what you were asking about earlier. That makes sense? All right. So the last thing to touch on is, and I know I have 2 minutes left, so I'll go really fast. There's 2 ways you can use this product as of our new version that released, I believe, what was it, earlier this week or maybe last week. But either way, there's this edition, which is our plugin version, which most people that want to use this are very concerned about their privacy and their data. So they have all of their users constrained to accessing their email through locally installed Outlook, and there's no webmail and so forth. So for a vast majority of the population for this, they're going to want this plugin that's just a self-contained plugin, no central console, just install this, manage it through group policy and a couple of registry entries, and it's super easy, super lightweight, and there's no external communication requirements, so there's no extra stuff they need to configure in firewalls or any other approvals and things they need to get about data. Makes it super simple. However, we also now have an edition you can deploy that's a hosted version, where the customer would just either A, spin up a web server, or B, if they have a server already, just host a file, and they point either Office 365 or You can add a plugin at the global level, decide who you want to use that plugin, and you can have that automatically happen for, with the hosted version alone, not only Outlook on-prem for Mac, but also Outlook Web Access. But that's going to be the hosted edition, where they don't it's not, they have to pick when they purchase. If you purchase SafeSend, they can deploy both if they want. They can have everyone using Outlook will use a local version, but only people using webmail will get the hosted edition. No problem. There's no licensing trouble of using both or having to decide or different SKUs or anything. Just you can do both or either way that you want to do it. And the other route is just a much more centrally managed way of doing this. But again, there are some people that are super concerned about data going all over the place and communication requirements. And that's where the on-prem edition really shines. Whew, okay, that is the last product I had to mention. And I know that I used every moment I had, but I apologize about that. And if you guys want to dig deeper on any one product, have any customers that want to dig deeper on any product, or I'm going to ask Mandy to set up one of these for when our patch management comes out so I can show you it because it's so cool. But I'll turn it back over to Mandy for the interest of time.
Yes, thank you, Ryan, for taking your time today. Thank you guys for joining. Did anyone have any questions for Ryan really fast?
Hey, can we get a copy of this recording to post on we have a YouTube channel?
Absolutely. I totally forgot I was recording. On that note,
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and get that stopped now. And as soon as I get the link from Zoom, I'll send it over to you.
Yeah, send it to Team 4. Chad will take care of it, and we'll post it out on so we can use it in case our partners want to get an update on you guys and stuff like that.